UNESCO India, and other partners that I will mention later on. Thank you for joining us for the first in the series of higher education dialogue conversation that we will be facilitating. We appreciate your company and we look forward to an interactive and engaging discussion. I would remind participants to mute their mic if they are not speaking. I will also encourage us to exercise some amount of respect and civility for our colleagues. And it is shaping up to be an interactive and engaging discussion. We will officially get underway in the next minute. Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. It is my distinct pleasure to be able to facilitate this panel discussion series. My name is Odane Brooks, and I have the pleasure to serve in Youth Education Association as Director for International Relations. It is often said that the youth is the future. But what we want to dispel this notion this evening that the youth is the future. I would put it forward that the youth is the now. Is higher education preparing you for the fourth industrial revolution? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me in our inaugural Talking Across Generations dialogue on education. This dialogue is brought to you by our partners, UNESCO Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Education and Peace, the Jamaica University, and the Union of Tertiary Students. This evening, we will be engaging in a serious dialogue on education, discussing ideas and the solutions to advance Jamaica. Before we go any further, let me invite the presence of God, and I will invite Ms. Shadika Roberts to offer a word of prayer.
Let us pray. True Eternal Father, we just want to thank you for this opportunity to grow in your grace, dear God. You have created man and you expect us to grow in every facet and every area of life. I pray that you may be with us, dear God, and that you may be with the proceedings of this program. May it be fruitful, bless and sanctify us all, we pray, in Jesus' name.
Amen, amen. Thank you so much, Ms. Roberts. And it's important that we invoke the presence of God in dialogues like this because we seek his guidance, we seek his inspiration to be able to articulate solutions that readily address the challenges that we have as Jamaica. At this point, I will invite the Chief Executive Director for Youth Education Association to bring us some greetings as well as an overview of the organization.
Thank you so much, Odane. Odane, give me one moment, please. Having some technical.
Not a problem. We understand that of technical difficulties, and that's why it's instructive that we will be discussing the fourth industrial revolution, because it is a period that will cause us to be able to solve problems that we did not foresee, but problems that challenge us as a country to respond. And so that is why it is important that we position our education system to be able to respond, because it is only through the ability to respond that our citizens will be able to compete globally. And so it is important that we're having this dialogue this evening, and it amplifies at this juncture, coming on the heels of the ravages of the COVID-19 pandemic. It is instructive that we have this dialogue at this point. Deputy ED, are you in a position to go ahead now?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much, Odane.
Perfect.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here at our first panel discussion. Of course, it is a pleasure to have you guys here and to know that you guys are all interested, of course, in such a topic. I want to welcome you guys once more. I hope that you guys will come again, of course, next week when we have the second series of our panel discussion, and of course for our final showing for our higher education conference on November 24th. Thank you guys so much for being here, and continue to stay with us throughout the night's proceedings.
I will want to also echo those sentiments. Great having everyone being a part of the dialogue. It is important that us young people mobilize ourselves, organize ourselves to being able to effectively coalesce around issues that affect us all. And so it's important that we are a part of this dialogue. We thank you so much for giving us your time and attention this evening. I will now invite our executive director. We just heard from our deputy executive director. We'll now hear from our executive director, Mr. iTAGE Wallen.
Thank you, Odane. Good evening, everyone. So my name is iTAGE Wallen, as our director says. I just want to give you a small little overview of Youth Education Association. So Youth Education Association was founded by myself in June 2020 with a few other persons from my high school, university life, and we have come together and started this organization and the mantra of assisting youths educationally in all aspects. Since our inception, we have done back to school supplies to students. We have given away tablets to students. We have done 4 back to school treats, 2 annually. 2021, we went to St. Andrew and Yellas. This year, 2022, we went to Portland and St. Catherine. We also have youth development seminars in the month of May and November. There are a lot more coming up. We also have climate change workshop. We currently have a partnership with Rio Hotel, where students are doing hospitality and tourism management at the CSEC and Cape level, where they are offered a tour at Rio Hotel to gain some insights of the different operations of the hotel, such as housekeeping, front desk, kitchen, bar, restaurant, you name it, all aspects of the hotel. And that is ongoing throughout. I must say, there is financial literacy workshop coming up in November. And in November this year, we have quite a few activities geared towards youth, financial literacy, other panel discussions for higher education. And then at the end, we have a conference, higher education conference. So welcome on board. It's a lot in store for Youth Education Association, and a lot more to hear from us in the future. More partnership, more projects to get towards youth, more involvement, more advocacy for youth, and you name it. So thanks again. This is one of many.
Indeed, it is one of many. We can feel the passion, we can feel the enthusiasm, and it is instructive that Taje made the point that it is young people at the high school level that actually chose to curate this organization. And it speaks to the fact, it speaks to the power that young people bring to advocacy. It speaks to the fact of the power that we have in addressing things that we see within our communities. Oftentimes we complain about what we see, but we do not collectively come together to address those things. And so it is good to see young people like Taje and others who have identified the need to become engaged, and we can all appreciate and recognize that kind of effort. So at this point, it is my pleasure to give you an insight into why we are here this evening. So Youth Education Association, consistent with our mantra to expand the reach of the organization and to curate a narrative around education in Jamaica, we would have been able to forge a collaboration with UNESCO Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Education for Peace and Sustainable Development. Through UNESCO India, we were able to forge this collaboration to utilize what is called their iTAGe methodology of mobilizing young people. iTAGe means it is Talking Across Generations series on education. Through this collaboration, we will be able to facilitate dialogues like this. This is the first of 3 dialogues that we will be having. And all of these dialogues, we will be engaging youth, because we believe that the youth is not the future, the youth is the current. And so we must engage the youth in whatever solutions are to be derived for the future. So after we host the 3 dialogues, we will culminate the series of activities into a final panel discussion. Not a panel discussion, but a higher education conference. At this higher education conference, we hope to engage various education stakeholders from the level of the Ministry of Education, from the level of administrators within the education sector, as well as other critical stakeholders in the education system. We will also be providing young people a space to also engage with those decision makers as well. So the concept is that these panel discussion activities will provide us with the basis to go into the higher education conference. It will set the grounding for the higher education conference. And we believe that this approach is significant because it allows the higher education conference to be issues-based and a focus on issues that are important to young people. Because many of us can recognize that oftentimes we have dialogues that are not relevant to what our young people are interested in. And so we want this higher education conference to reflect some of the issues that will be discussed here this evening. So for this entire series of activities, we have important partners that I will also want to highlight. We have partnering with us the MEIGP University College. We also have the Jamaica Union of Tertiary Students, and importantly, the student unions across Jamaica that will take up the mantle to join us each panel discussion series, to engage with us, to share their ideas, and to assist us in articulating what are the issues that our young people are interested in. So we welcome you and we look forward to an engaging discussion. So at this time, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our panelists for this evening's panel discussion. We consider our panelists to be critical spokespersons because they represent student populations that are important and which must be given a space to be able to articulate the issues that they believe are important to them. So this evening, we are delighted to have with us Ms. Yannick White, and she is the president for the Excelsior Community College Student Union. We also have with us Ms. Natalia Burton. She is the president for the University Commonwealth of the Caribbean Debating Society. And we also have with us Mr. Tavoy Barrett, and he is the president for UTEX Student Union. So we can all agree that we have some critical spokespersons for student population here with us this afternoon. This provides us with the opportunity to now welcome them and to give them an opportunity to share a few opening remarks with us. So we will go with Ms. White first.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to be here to do something on this magnitude. It is good when we can come together and talk about issues and share our experiences and recommendations to things that are of importance to our students and what we can do to make their experience at college or university better. So it's good that we are doing this, and I'm looking forward to the discussion that we will have this evening.
Thank you, Ms. White, and it's good to have you here because we want to hear the ideas that you have, and so we are able to bring forth those ideas to the policymakers, the decision makers, and the ultimate persons in authority that have the ability to shape our higher education landscape. We also have with us this evening Mr. Tavoy Barrett, and he is the president for the UTEC Student Union. Welcome, Mr. Barrett. Could you share with us just some opening words?
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. Thank you so much, Odane. Good evening, everybody. The conversation here today around the fourth industrial revolution and how specifically how higher education prepares us for that is one that is, it should be more topical than it is, as the fourth industrial revolution is something that we can't stop at this point, and even as in our own minute and building way, you can see the different movement towards that as a country in Jamaica. So we also have to take into consideration how we prepare our young people to take up space as part of this revolution, and how we'll be able to capitalize on it to, you know, make the country a better place, and even to participate and be a part of larger scale markets across the world.
Thank you so much. And it's important and instructive that you made reference to markets, because the essence of education is that countries want to ensure that their citizens are able to compete globally. And so it is important that we focus on not just Jamaica, but also focus on what is happening around us. So quite important observation from Mr. Barrett here. I will now go over to the other lady on the panel. We have Ms. Natalia Burton, and she represents the students of UCC in her capacity as president for their debating society. Thank you so much, Ms. Burton, for joining us. Would you be able to share a few opening remarks?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you for coming and for just being a part of this very necessary dialogue as it regards to higher education, preparing students for the fourth industrial revolution. I think it's very crucial for policymakers and stakeholders within the education system to ensure that students are equipped with the necessary skills and knowledge to go out into the workforce and to make effective or efficient contribution within towards the fourth industrial revolution. And I think that simply ensuring that we maximize what is happening within the learning space and prioritize education and innovation within the tertiary level, that will help students to go out and to actually conquer different industries and be impactful, even though we are a third world country.
Thank you so much, Miss Burton. We were having a bit of challenge hearing your audio clearly. I am not sure if it is a connectivity challenge, but we hope that the situation improves, because we definitely want to hear the perspectives that you have to share with us this evening. So thank you, my panelists, my esteemed panelists, for those insightful opening words. So I think we are quite set, we are quite comfortable at this point to be able to engage in some amount of conversation. And I use the word conversation because it is a forum where we will be sharing perspectives. We recognize that no one individual is the reservoir of all information. And so we invite different perspectives. The protocol for this evening's panel discussion is that we will take questions at the end of the discussion, and then we will ask our panelists to address whatever questions that are presented, so that we can have some amount of order and civility within the discourse. So the theme for the panel discussion asks, is higher education preparing you for the fourth industrial revolution? And that is where I want to begin first. Mr. Barrett, is higher education preparing you and your students that you represent for the fourth industrial revolution?
So, as I was sitting here, Odane, I was thinking about it, and I realized that in all our opening remarks, we may have missed one of the crucial point of the introduction of the topic or the theme, and that is to basically go over some of the key points in the general or the broader picture. Not taking for granted that there may be people here who don't understand what the fourth industrial revolution is or what it's characterized by. But real quickly, I'll just try to sum that up in a second and then move on to sharing my points on how I feel about the theme itself or the question that's being posed. So the fourth industrial revolution is characterized heavily by digitization, and we see it already with Internet of Things and a lot of technology-based advancement, tech-based advancement even in our day-to-day activities. It's just that these will be, way in a different speed in the sense that we'll now be seeing artificial intelligence around us on a regular basis. It's not just a one-off situation or something that you see on TV, but no, this is a thing that is very common for even in the most random or the simplest office space. So with that being said, how does higher education prepare, or is it preparing us, or myself specifically, for the fourth industrial revolution? There are people who may say that, with its characterization of digitization, there comes the loss of jobs and the change in career path, technology now moving for the redundancy, or no longer having a need for human interaction or participation in the work process. But at the same time, we have to remember that a big part of that are maintaining, developing, building out these softwares also need some sort of human connection or intervention as well. And that is where the need comes in now for higher education that is focused or is characterized by or with the fourth industrial revolution in mind. So not because I'm studying business doesn't mean that my business education should be based solely on brick and mortar concepts, because that was, that's from time ago. Right now, I should be learning about how I can incorporate artificial intelligence or Internet of Things as part of business modeling or business concept development. And it's a subtle shift in that it can be incorporated in all different areas, but it becomes harder and harder, especially in a local context when you can't see the examples or the case studies around you. But in some international spaces, it may be a bit easier because you can look at an average or random company and make inference or reference to the things that they would do that mimic the move towards the fourth industrial revolution. It's controversial because even here at UTech, we are a very practical, hands-on institution, and the question has to be asked: is this practical and hands-on training one that is characterized by the future-proofed in the direction that we are heading to, or is it one that was more for a time 10 years ago or even 15 years ago? And those are some of the questions that we have to raise at this point.
Important questions indeed, and it speaks to the point of the ability of the education system to pivot and respond to global developments. I will similarly pose the same question to Ms. White to share her perspectives on if she believes that higher education is currently preparing her for the fourth industrial revolution.
So I would have to agree what my panelist Savoy has said. He has said it very well. So we know that the fourth industrial revolution will, or if it has not disrupt higher education, there are some profound questions that we have to ask ourselves and how it has been delivering in the schools. And some of them, yes, will have technological answers, while some will have a philosophical challenge as the universities or colleges have to redefine what they stand for. And so we know that, like for myself, as I embark on my career in the information technology field, there are demands that are out there, and we know that technology evolves every day, and there are new things that come out every day, and we have to keep on developing ourselves in that regards, where it transforms how and what we work on. So I think that for me personally, it is a learning experience I have to continuously do, because even though we might learn some things in school, when we go out into the working world, it's something different, and we have to adapt to that to enable us and to continue on our career path. And so universities or colleges in this sense have to be searching for models that they can adapt to in helping the students garner the required skills that they need to support lifelong learning per se.
Very important and solid intervention there from Ms. White. She argues that universities have to look at the models, the modalities that they are utilizing to respond to what the imperatives of the fourth industrial revolution is. Important points raised there. I will now turn over to Ms. Burton from UCC to share her perspective on the theme question, is higher education preparing you for the fourth industrial revolution?
Now, I would have to go ahead and agree with the previous panelists who have spoken by saying that, yes, I do feel that there are ways in which higher education is preparing me for the fourth industrial revolution. However, I think that there is still a long way to go in just maximizing that impact, because my major specifically is social work. And within the field of social work in Jamaica, we are far behind on things like digitization, using technology, and being efficient in terms of moving away from older techniques and using modern techniques, which are fueled by technology. So I feel like the implementation of programs and courses that teach students how to use technology, how to implement technology, and how to maximize the things that are coming about from the fourth industrial revolution, and taking that out of college or university into the workspace will definitely help to make the fields a lot more richer. And going beyond my program, I definitely think there are some programs which are less prepared for the fourth industrial revolution than others. So I feel like there needs to be some standardization implemented from an institutional or policy level that ensures that everybody, regardless of program, is in some way prepared to tackle the fourth industrial revolution or to keep up. One of the main issues that will come about from the industrial revolution, as was said, is job displacement. However, there are job opportunities that will come about, but these need skills and these need technological knowledge and grasp. So I feel like we need to redefine the educational landscape, and as the previous panelist said, redefine or think about what is important to us. Are we holding on to traditional values at the cost of maximizing innovation and moving towards the future? I definitely think that we have, for example, general courses such as literature and Spanish, which, yes, are useful, but we also could have general courses such as coding or software literacy that also prepares us to tackle the future. So I feel like we are making progress, but as a nation, there is still a ways to go, and there are many things to be talked about at the policy level that could improve our preparation for the industrial revolution.
Quite a fulsome response there from Ms. Burton. I think Ms. Burton probably have summed up the entire panel discussion, but it gives us the basis to enter into another dimension of the discussion. At this point, I want to gauge some perspectives on, we see what is happening around us here in Jamaica. We see what is happening in the global context. To what extent do you believe, and I will throw this out to Ms. White first, to what extent do you believe Jamaica has been making progress in adapting to the fourth industrial revolution imperatives?
To what extent? Wow. Thinking about it, and I probably shouldn't be this biased, but thinking about it, honestly, I feel like they are lagging a little bit, like they should be moving more faster than what they are doing. I don't think they have it as a priority. So it would be on us as youth leaders to really push that mantra. And probably if they see us doing that, then they will say, hey, this is important. This is the lives or the future of our youth, of our generations coming up. So I think that along that line, they should be moving much faster than they are doing. I mean, there are things, there are improvements that have been made, but I personally think that it needs to be more than what it is.
Thank you, Ms. White. She has thrown out the gauntlets to us youth to keep the pressure on to ensure that it becomes the policy agenda, it becomes the priority of the government. And so as young people, we have this burden to carry to ensure that Jamaica is able to make the progress and transition towards the fourth industrial revolution. I would also want to hear some perspectives from my other panelists. I will start with Mr. Barrett on that point as to what extent do you think that Jamaica is making progress towards transitioning to the fourth industrial revolution?
I think in terms of progress, it has started with basic and simple adaptation. For example, being able to, or the move to people being more open to online, even something simple as online shopping. People being able to access different services that will be able to open the gateways or potential to using and accessing the digital services. And I think another example would be digital payments, and we've seen that through the digital currency. And it's just really and truly, we may not realize it, but it's basic and simple, different moves that really just increase the access to services that are characterized by the fourth industrial revolution. If I'm to put a percentage on it though, or to give it an actual score, I'd say that it's a slow progress so far, but I can see where there are constant and steady improvements over the period.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. That it is slow, but perspective of Mr. Barrett, and if she do, what do she believe we can do to improve the rate or the pace at which we transition to the fourth industrial revolution?
I apologize, Mr. Brooks. I believe that you were frozen for a second. So just to clarify, you're asking on my views for how exactly we can increase the pace of improving to handle the fourth industrial revolution?
Spot on, that's the question.
Okay, well, I'm actually glad that you raised this question, because I feel like Jamaica, being a third world country, when it comes to world leaders or countries who are at the forefront of technological advancement and development, Jamaica and other third world countries alike are always 2 steps behind. And I feel like while we may not be able to change that quickly or fully when it comes to previous developments or technologies, I feel like a fundamental opportunity that is characterized by the 4th industrial revolution is the ability to collaborate and invest. So I feel like in the educational system specifically, and also in other industries, the government needs to prioritize investment on training, education, and understanding on certain technologies that are at the forefront of the 4th industrial revolution. So I find that in the education system, for example, once again, redefining the landscape of exactly what we learn and how we learn it is a great first step, because when you look at learning methods, for example, utilizing artificial intelligence, digital methods, I know that COVID-19 has forced us to shift modality and we have been exposed to the online modality. However, I feel that there are various technologies that are still unexplored. I feel that we could, for example, as students, be exposed to things such as virtual reality, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, coding, things that will really prepare us to go into various industries and sectors and be at the forefront of technological advancement and share this knowledge with older generation. So I feel like, for example, governments investing in innovation labs in universities that give students the opportunity to use virtual reality, complete projects using virtual reality technology, 3D printing, for example, would really broaden our knowledge and increase the rate at which we are prepared or ready to conquer and contribute to the 4th industrial revolution.
Wow.
Just
Collaboration.
to kind of add to that, Odane, because
Sure.
and I fully agree with Natalia, and just to add, it also goes back to the training and development of the already existing workforce, specifically the lecturers, tutors in the universities and colleges, because at the end of the day, we would need support staff or people who will do the implementation of these innovation labs or the use of these technologies. So there has to be a heavy investment on the development of the existing workforce as they prepare to train the next generation. And that's where the challenge is, because it will take some amount of a cultural shift, because you are in this groove of teaching for lecturing for maybe even 30 years, over 30 years, and you are already into what you consider to be the it or the tradition, the way to get things done. And that's where I see the challenge, really and truly.
And that is indeed a challenge. Mr. Maurice Henry, I see your raised hand, but what we will do, record your question, and we will take it once we have done the roundabout with the panel. Then we can open the floor for the audience to engage. Important point raised there by Ms. Barrett, the importance of investment and collaboration. And this spring off to my next question. Hold your feedback, Mr. Henry. I know the passion and the enthusiasm, because we will have a segment for our participants where you can engage and partner with them. So what Ms. Barrett has placed on the table and what I heard from Mr. Barrett is that persons are really stuck in their way. So the challenge for us as young people, what do you believe we can do to redefine how we see education? What can we do or advise policymakers about how to go about redefining education? I will put that to Ms. White.
Okay. So as we are being forced, I think for us, some recommendations that we need to put forward, and it's something that the personals or administrators should do. First of all, is listen and have the students at the heart of any policy making decisions they are doing. Have a meeting with them, say, hey, this is what the issues are. These are the recommendations of the students and what we need to do to ensure that whatever elements are out there, that the students or us as students are at the forefront of it. So one of my recommendations that I have done with Excelsior Community College is have suggestion boxes all over campus. And we would put them out and take them up at a particular time of the day. And for me personally, I am more of a doer than a speaker. And I put my students who I'm advocating for at the forefront. So anything they come to me with about, and if I see our principal or VPs on campus, I will sit in their office from whenever, as long as they are there to speak to. I don't care. They have another meeting, my students come first. I don't really care. And I sit in their office and I say, I need to talk to you because these are issues and I need answers to give my students right now. And I would go through the issues and I prioritize them. And the ones that are number one, I say, we need to figure this out now. And if you need to go to the board or the committee, I can go with you too. I'm a part of the board of management. I can go with you too. But we need this to be done now. And there are some instances where, the issue, it isn't resolved in 1 hour or a day. It takes time because of, policies. They have to go through a lot of vetting before they are approved. But we have to do what we have to do, and we have to stand firm because that is what we have been called to do. We have to stand firm and say, yes, I want this to be done, or no, this cannot be done that way. So we have to, same as how they are forcing us, we have to force them too, because at the end of the day, it's our money spending for our education, and we are our stakeholders. And if we are not happy, then business cannot continue. So just as how they are forcing us, we have to force them in some situations as well.
So I seem to have, we lost you at the end. I'm not sure if it's my connection or yours, but could you just repeat your closing?
Oh, I was saying that since they are forcing us to do something, we have to force them to do something as well, because at the end of the day, it's our money, it's our life, it's our education.
Absolutely, Ms. White advanced that we must stand firm. Mr. Barrett, is that what you're doing at UTech, standing firm to have administration redefine higher education?
Right, that is so true, and it's I think it's a widespread characterization, and even sometimes I sit in meetings with admin, and there have been numerous occasions where I've been the one who have to explain some of what we'd consider some simple technological concepts, something as simple as, how we use WhatsApp communication, and sometimes it's like simple adjustments that you'd say, oh, you'd expect this to make sense, or you'd expect this to be something that any random person can see. But really and truly, a part of the challenge is that, or what I'd put forward as a challenge for all of us, is that even as students, we have to identify these gaps in the system, and we have to be the ones to put them forward. If we're going to expect and again, it goes back to my earlier point, after 30, 50 years of doing the same thing over and over again, until people who experience are on the receiving end of the service, until we are able to come forward and say, yo, this can continue the way it is, then we can't expect to see any change, because in the mind of the people on the back end, they think, oh, this is perfect, this is going great. And I see that quite often. So it's also about identifying and doing even just minimal updates where necessary. And sometimes it has to be drastic updates, it has to be a pull down and build all the way back up, in the sense of enabling the different services to be more technological or front-facing. But I want to introduce an additional point, though, and that's the point around the support services that are provided from the universities and colleges to students as we move to this fourth industrial revolution. As we've mentioned before, it's characterized by a lot of technological advancements and tech features, which simply means that we may have less interaction and face-to-face experience. The universities have to now take into consideration, how do we make the university experience one that is characterized again by networking opportunities, the ability to share with people, to interact, the socialization, because it's one thing to go with the times and make the advancement, but then it's another thing to do a disservice to students in the fact that they are at their houses behind a computer screen all day, every day, but there's nothing in place to support their social development or socialization. So that's a part of the conversation that I want to put forward at this point. And it's something that even as guilds and councils, that we can look into ourselves and see, how do we support the universities in adding to the social development of students across our different institutions.
Another gauntlet being thrown down by our representative from UTEP, Mr. Barrett, articulates that there is some responsibility on us as young people to nudge those in authority to move on along the tangent. And that is why we're having this dialogue here, because we want to formulate an action policy document that we can use to engage with our critical stakeholders to advance the narrative. I will put to Ms. Burton, she made the point earlier about collaboration and investment. Could you share with us some more on some of the avenues you believe there is opportunities for collaboration and investment?
Yes, certainly so. So when it comes to investment, I believe that the government is obviously a huge role to play, has a huge role to play in investing in the quality of education, the resources that are accessible to students, and so on and so forth. But I also believe that at an institutional capacity, collaboration is very important in the sense that administrators can actually reach out to different entities that have more experience, more knowledge, more background in things that they want to adopt. So I know, for example, UCC as an institution collaborates with University of London and I think University of Columbia, but they collaborate with several other universities abroad to offer programs to Jamaicans. And I feel like looking at those avenues, outsourcing in some cases to receive technology, to receive training, is an effective way of filling in the gaps that are missing within our own industries and sectors. So I feel like it's definitely something to consider. Finding a university from a country that is well versed in something that you want to adopt. So let's say, for example, UCC wants to start offering a course that is Introduction to Virtual Reality. Finding a university that has those resources and is willing to share their knowledge and establishing a network and relationship with them can be a mutually beneficial thing, because we get to receive their knowledge and we get to receive their training, while at the same time enriching their programs as well. So I think that is an avenue that should be considered more.
Thank you, Ms. Burton. Important point that you raise about the need to build institutional capacity, because it means that if we're going to enter into this new phase, we have to look about giving our people the ability to be able to adapt to what this new environment will require. So important point that you raise. I will just put it also to Ms. White to hear her take on some of the opportunities for collaboration and investments.
There are a lot of opportunities there, and although the government is at the forefront, or we put the government at the forefront, we have to also look at smaller aspects, which a lot of persons don't really look at, and is our alumni associations. We have so many persons leaving these institutions and building a career for themselves, but yet still we are not reaching out to those persons. And I look at it from the perspective of my experience, where when I reach out to some of these alumni, they are saying that, how long I wanted to come back to the institution and give, but no one is reaching out to me. So I just say, hey, if you're not reaching out to me, then I am not going to do it. So we have to look at those small elements of things. And like, we have various companies. I know for my company, where we have internship programs and we partner with these institutions to say, you can do like a 6-month program or 1-year program just to get the knowledge and understanding of what the work world will be. So there are various opportunities, not only internationally, but locally. And so we have to really research and dig in and find what is suitable or what is best for your institution. But there are a lot of opportunities out there. We just have to look for them.
A lot of opportunities, Ms. White articulate just now. And she made the point about the importance of starting at the granular level, because it requires a mindset shift. And so if we're able to have this dialogue at the institutional level, it will ultimately be elevated to the policy level. And so we must start at the community level, having that kind of engagement. And so we are able to organize ourselves and engage with those at the policy level to embark upon some of these reforms. We here in
If
Jamaica,
I may add something, Mr. Brooks.
Sure.
I also feel like I have a slightly different perspective to share as a first-year student who is not yet on the student council. I feel like collaboration can also very much include students, because as a debater, I have definitely made it my point of aim to make my voice be heard no matter what title or capacity I may have. And I feel like for students, it is very crucial for them to understand that regardless of title, regardless of capacity, they have a voice. And I definitely think that sometimes the universities by default want to take a sort of top-down approach, but we can actually push for a bottom-up approach to be taken, and we can voice issues and make it be known that there's actually a demand for change or innovation in certain areas. Because if we are not raising that there is a demand for something, the institutions are going to think, okay, everything is fine, we don't need to make adjustments, we don't need to improve. So I feel like coming together, drafting concerns, petitions, policies is also a great way for students to make their voices heard and have their demands and needs met.
Thank you, Ms. Burton. Important points there being raised on the matter of mobilizing ourselves into organized groups, because as young people, when we engage with persons in authority, numbers are significant. And so it means that we must come together. When we come together, they recognize that we are really serious about our future. And so we must come together in forming units that are united and resolute around the importance of advancing this kind of discussion and ensuring that our voices are heard. We currently have institutions like Caribbean Maritime University that was established primarily to improve Jamaica's overall connectivity with the world. And it's not only via sea, but other modalities. I see Mr. Henry raising his hand again. I will permit you this time, Mr. Henry, because you seem very eager to share. So I will permit you. Okay, so I wanted to gauge from the panel, what role or what more do they think an institution like the Caribbean Maritime University can do to accelerate our progression towards unlocking some of the opportunities to be gained out of the fourth industrial revolution? So I will take Mr. now and then give my other panelists an opportunity to think on that question.
Hello, good night. Good night, hello.
Good night, Mr. Henry. We're hearing you loud and clear.
All right, good night, everyone. Thanks for coming. Thanks for letting me speak. I'm a Caribbean Maritime University graduate. I was in the engineering program, right? Just to touch on the point of the Industrial Revolution, right? We have a lab called the Festus Lab, which is open to 4 main categories for study in robotics. We have the pneumatics, we have the PLC, which is programmable logic controllers, the transistor tech, and the hydraulics section, right? So we have 4 different sections in the Festus Lab where students go to learn and you can pick up a certification on these different principles under the robotics category, right? What I wanted to talk about is Miss Burton, I think, said a point earlier about the Industrial Revolution in the schools. I think the sharing between the schools, I think labs like these can be built onto other campuses very easily to accommodate students. I don't think sharing would be very easy under the Caribbean Maritime University, as it's a very strict regime school. Many of the students may want to comply with the regime of the school and how they handle things, and the space is not very large. It is 4 small classrooms, right? And with the students there already, there was a system set up to like accommodate us at different time slots during the weeks so that we can use the labs efficiently and we wouldn't be affecting other classes because they're very small. So I'm saying on my point is for the other universities and schools to introduce the lab similar, right? It doesn't have to be the 4 exact same rooms. It can be 2 rooms, right? Which offer 2 other functions of each, right? Which would make it a lot easier for students to transition into the robotics field or any other technological or industrial revolutionized field, right? Am I clear?
You're very, very much clear, Mr. Henry, and solid intervention on the point. And you introduce the idea that there exists some opportunities for sharing, not necessarily sharing physical infrastructure, but sharing knowledge, because it is through that kind of knowledge transfer that we will be able to bring other institutions up to the point where they can become agents of transformation. So I will just seek to engage my panelists on that specific point that would have been raised by Mr. Henry, and more so the point about what more, if any, can the Caribbean Maritime University do in assisting Jamaica to transition towards that 4th industrial revolution phase. I will go with Mr. Barrett first.
All right, so in the case of UTEC, we are considered to be the national university, and I know the question was centered around CMU, but I'm going to narrow it down a bit specific to the UTEC situation. So for UTEC, I believe that a part of our role in preparing Jamaica and specifically students for the 4th industrial revolution starts with increasing the level of research that we do as a university and produce. Because as a university, we're able to now, do the research and the studies to see over the next couple of years what the outlook for work look like, the outlook for job opportunities look like, and specifically around and in the context of the 4th industrial revolution. With that, we're able to then, do an adjustment to whatever course offerings that we have and support other institutions in even adjusting their own course offerings with comparative analysis and research in different institutions across the world to see what they are offering and how their courses would stack up in a 1st world or in a 3rd world country. We are also able to make improvements to the existing courses to ensure that they aren't, when they are added or when students leave the space or the learning institution, they enter into a job that now makes them feel lost, which is, it could happen because, you are in school learning to practically or in a practical way, learning to operate different machines or different resources. But in the working world or in a context where, let's say, the 4th industrial revolution is now a major part of work, you will now have to be operating these same machines, equipment from the perspective of a digital point of view, which you may not have understood if it is that you weren't introduced to those concepts from the tertiary level or the education that you are prepared for this world of work. So I think that's where our role starts as an institution specific to UTEC, research, and then making adjustments and supporting other institutions across the country to make their own adjustments.
Important work by UTEC being highlighted there. It starts with...
just quickly, I know that this will be put into a nice document that will be delivered somewhere and to some people in high places. So let me just put this point forward. In doing this research or in supporting the other universities, it means that the government must then support the university in increasing whatever funding or resource allocation that we may need now to effectively produce this level or capacity of research. Because I'm sure it's not that UTEC doesn't want to produce or to do more research, but at the moment, it could really just be a case where, our hands are just tied where the resources are concerned. And even from a student perspective, on a one-on-one basis, we would need a certain level of support, again, and assistance that is really and truly only doable or approachable from the perspective of financial support through the government.
Important point there. The government, the state has an important role to play in providing that ecosystem where institutions like UTech can accelerate the work that they are currently doing. And this now brings me into the discussion to hear from at this industrial revolution. So, Ms. Burton, if you had the opportunity to advise the government, what would your advice be?
Mr. Brooks, you were frozen for quite a bit. So would it be possible for you to restate the first part of your statement?
Not a problem. So I wanted to engage you on what do you think at the policy level, what can be done at the policy level to accelerate our transition towards the fourth industrial revolution? If you were able to advise the government, what would your advice be?
Well, I would advise them to simply consider investing. And while financial and monetary investment is important towards implementing certain programs, training opportunities for the current workforce, as would have been posed by Tavoy, and other things that would help for us and our citizens as a nation to catch up and become more literate or comprehend some of the technologies that are being put forth for the fourth industrial revolution. I also think just them showing an interest in the role that education has to play, and to follow up with ensuring that institutions are constantly innovating, are constantly advancing their quality of service, and are offering newer services, models of delivery, and areas of benefit to students. I think just them having that initiative to ensure that we are not in a place of stagnance when it comes to learning and education, I think that's very important. So I think that the government should constantly be doing research, comparing our education system to the education system of world leaders, first world countries, and saying, as a third world country, we may not be able to do everything exactly like, let us say, the United States. However, what is it that we can do to bridge that gap and to become a little closer to their level of advancement? So I feel like the government needs to constantly be re-evaluating and seeing where changes and implementations can be made, so that we can bridge little gaps until we find ourselves at a place where we are not 2 steps behind, but 1 step behind, which is even greater. So I think the government needs to prioritize progress and needs to listen to the voices of various stakeholders.
Listen to the voice of various stakeholders. Advance, Ms. Burton. Thank you so much, Ms. Burton, for that intervention. We will use the next 5 minutes to engage with our panelists, and then the remaining 30 minutes we will open to the audience to engage with the panelists as well as to share their thoughts and perspectives. Ms. White, I want to engage you on a discussion surrounding the role that culture plays, because the fourth industrial revolution is argued to be a very disruptive period. And so it requires new way of thinking, a new way of going about doing things. But if we are to be frank, here in Jamaica, it is ingrained within our psyche that you must become a lawyer or a doctor. No one is really looking towards robotics. Not say no one, but not a lot of persons not looking towards coding. How can we bridge that cultural dilemma that we face?
So neither technology nor the disruption that comes with it have any force over humans and what we think. Most kids or most children nowadays, they have preconceived notions based on how they were brought up and what their parents want for them. And it comes to the point where it is when they are able to think on their own or do their research on their own that they found out, hey, that it's not only doctors or lawyers out there that you can become a business analyst, a system administrator, anything that is of interest to you that you find. And it is good and bad in the sense where we have access to the internet ever so often. And so their minds wander and they do their research and see the different career paths that are online. So in the end, it all comes down to people and the values that we have and what it is needed to shape a future that works for all of us. And that is firstly empowering them. And in most cases, the fourth industrial revolution may indeed have the potential to grow that perspective in how we think, or we hack, or we integrate our lives together. So it is not a hard thing to do. It is just for persons to be open to that change and readily accept that is what someone wants to do.
It is not a hard thing. We have to be open and accept the change. That is what Ms. White believes. Mr. Barrett, do you share
if I
that?
may chip in quickly, Mr. Brooks,
Not a problem.
Very glad that you posed this question because it was actually something that I was thinking about with traditional professions. And I believe that while as individuals, we need to do research and know the options available to us, as was brilliantly posed by Yannick, I think that also things can be done at the state level and the institutional level to kind of shift away from, well, not shift away from the emphasis on tradition, but to also emphasize more innovative and groundbreaking opportunities. So I think that the government can make use of sensitization and subsidization. So just advertising that there is an industry for certain things, explaining what certain things are so that persons are aware of fields beyond doctor, teacher, lawyer, and also subsidizing these costs, making it attractive for persons to go into those fields of studies. And I also feel like institutions themselves can place more emphasis on advertising the unique or innovative programs that they have to offer, because I know that sometimes they would hide behind the popular professions, but I also think they can do a better job of advertising industries that will hold weight in the future.
Absolutely, no area of disagreement there. The need to incentivize the areas that will be important for the fourth industrial revolution. We'll use the next minute to get Mr. Barrett's take on that cultural question. How do we overcome the cultural hurdle of generally students focusing on the traditional career path?
All right, so I'm going to answer this question from two different perspectives. And perspective A is the way that you pose the question, and then perspective B is the way that I interpreted the question. So from the perspective of traditional career path and the culture that we have as a country to, prefer doctor, lawyer, teacher, what I want to suggest or put forward is that the fourth industrial revolution also affects these areas. And in all honesty, there are also going to be advancements and changes that will require a different shift or a shift in the way that things are done for doctors, teachers, lawyers. So with that being said, we have to introduce the concept of technological advancements to children from even the stage of selecting career choice or career path, so that they are now able to put into context, what does this industrial revolution look like for me as a student, and even for me as I look forward to get into the working world. And this is something that can be done ideally at the secondary level as people transition into the tertiary level. In the second perspective, I was looking at culture from the perspective of our Jamaican culture and our creativity. And the truth is, really, if we think about it, even something as simple as robotics, there's going to be a need for that to have some type of flair and a human input to it as to how it's developed and how it's built. Jamaica, as a country, we are characterized by our own creativity. I mean, probably the most creative place in this world. And individually, I think we will all be able to add our own flavor to different things that we'll see coming out of the fourth industrial revolution. So robots from America I don't think will ever look like robots from Jamaica. The way that we use Internet of Things in Jamaica will not be the same as it's used anywhere else in the world. And that's because of our creativity. And despite the soft nature of creativity and it being a soft skill, it will also play a crucial role as we move into this revolution. And that's something that we have to introduce to students from as early as possible, the idea of creative thinking and how that impacts the way we work and the world of work.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Important points you have raised. We are now entering into the phase of the panel discussion to engage with our audience. I can feel the enthusiasm coming from the audience. So I will go first with Nicole, who would have raised her hand earlier, and then I'll take Mr. Henry.
All right, good evening, everyone. Excellent discussion so far. All three panelists are excellent. Forgive me for being a little bit biased towards the ladies who hail from both my alma maters, first EXED and then I went on to UCC. But I do love UTech as well. So one of the things I want to add that is, I think it is very critical, is we also need a sensitization of parents. And to get over that hurdle that Yannick first spoke about, where we are not looking at the non-traditional things and we're thinking that we are only, we only need to be a lawyer, doctor, teacher, going to government, be civil servant until the day we retire. It starts with the parents. And parents need to be sensitized. It is often that high school now have what we call career days, where we're inviting persons in to speak to the students and we're sensitizing them to all of the careers that are out there. But who is sensitizing? The parents, who ultimately are the persons who are going to say, I don't know anything about that. I'm not paying for you to go to school and to do that, because they are not sensitized to some of these new careers that are taking place. And so I think that as we move into this fourth industrial revolution, is that we cannot leave the parents behind, because the parents ultimately are going to be the ones fueling a lot of the financial aspect of these new careers for our students. I have two children, one at UTech currently and one at EXED. in fact, and one is doing automotive engineering, one is doing IT cybersecurity. And one of the things I say to my children is that Jamaica is not your market. The world is your market. To say that, I'm not telling them to necessarily leave Jamaica, but I'm saying that we have to look beyond borders. We are at a point where we are a borderless society. We are global. And so as we embark as parents on financing the education of our children, of our youngsters, we have to also make sure that the parents are brought up to speed on all of the new things that exist. Thank you.
Important point there, bringing the parents along, because ultimately they have that moral persuasion and they have the sway oftentimes in terms of what their children actually pursue. We'll now take Maurice's intervention.
All right, good night again, ladies and gentlemen. The first touch on Mrs. Dua point, the point of the parents, right? The first things first, I want everyone to understand, the government and the schools are mainly raising the children now. The parents don't really have a say most of the days of their life. They spend 5 days at school for 8 to 10 hours, correct? If the schools and the government are in charge of the students during these times, the parents don't really have much interaction and influence over them. So they becomes the one that are now influencing and raising our children or youth of the country, right? So when I was going to school, there wasn't really any programs that would gear you towards a program for like robotics or engineering. There weren't any programs in secondary levels at a government institution that would fuel a student to prepare for the college or university level of that study, right? I think that's where one of the first problems, major problems that we have in Jamaica. We don't have a secondary institution or set of institution that prepare students for courses like that. When they do go to engineering courses, right? I'm an engineering graduate myself. Most of them drop out by the second to third year. They start with a class of 30 and it end up being down to 10 to 7 students at the final year. Nobody stays in engineering past their second year. And it's a true and it's a plague in the country, right? And to touch on our other point about borderless Jamaica, the main problem with Jamaica now is our brain drain problem, right? We have the second highest brain drain in the world percentage, not per person, percentage of 91%. The country leading above us is Samoa. But the difference, let me explain the difference with our statistics now. Samoa has a population of 200,000, right? If their brain drain percentage is 100% across the board, compared to Jamaica's population of 3 million, right? With a 91% leading straight behind them. The persons that are leaving Jamaica after finishing university are at a 91% is higher per person than Samoa. So in fact, we are actually the highest country with brain drain in the world, right? And it's because when students do these courses, such as engineering, robotics, software engineers, IT specialists, all of those things, they don't want to stay. The government doesn't provide any form of industry where the students can safely transition and continue their education in what they studied. There is no jobs that are set up and are revolutionized to help students transition from school into a job, right? There is no preparation prior, so the students most likely won't stay because they are feeling that I need to go somewhere where I need to catch up or be at some kind of lead in my career path, right? And I think what the government needs to do is introduce a lot of courses or programs that can help students with these transitions in life, starting from the secondary level to the college level to the university level into a job. Even in a job, that's where their education still continues, right? Because you learn every day as a human being. It doesn't stop after school. You learn every day. They need the technology and these advancements throughout every aspect of life in order to continue learning and building upon what they know, right? So I hope I got that point across. Hope everybody understood.
You certainly did get that point across, Maurice. I see your hand, Mr. Wallen. I will take the comment in the chat and then revert to you. So we have Shanika saying in the chat that I think that the educational system need to do more. Theory is not cutting it. Even in the traditional jobs, the education structure is not ideal. Take, for example, I hold an accounting degree from UCC. It did not help me much in the world of work. I think the system needs to take technology into consideration. For example, in the accounting field, they should include in the curriculum the use of QuickBooks and other accounting softwares in the classroom. That I believe is much more effective. And this is an important point because we have to recognize that the traditional jobs will remain in the fourth industrial revolution era. But what it will require is our ability to pivot and to use technology in a more smart and effective way. So referencing the point from Shanika, accounting will still be relevant, but it will now demand more higher order skills. And so the education system must recognize this and also transition towards building that kind of capacity and that kind of skill set to enable the graduates to be able to capitalize and remain relevant within their different fields. So important point and important dimension to the conversation here. You can go now, Mr. Wallen.
You guys are hearing me?
We are hearing you clear.
Okay, so I just want to make reference to the comment in the chat. Hold on a moment.
Important point as I was alluding to being
Sorry
raised.
about that. I am now here. So in regards to the comment from Shanika, it's a matter of where you might need to, we as students, we might need to do some searching of university because some university is somewhat advanced in the technology area. For example, I did an accounting degree at UTech and I did Peachtree in the classroom. So there was a class that called Peachtree that will actually learn the different steps, the payables, the receivables, the general accounting, and how to input data on the payables module or in the receivables module while in that class. So at the end, we generate financial statements and stuff. So there are courses currently, there are degrees rather, in the courses within the various degrees that actually do these things. In that same degree, we also did use IDEA, and IDEA is an auditing software. We did my degree, so we did use an accounting software, and we're using an auditing software. So we have that technology. So when we want to go out into the world of work, we have an idea of one accounting software, which is Peachtree, and one auditing software, which is IDEA. Mark you, IDEA might not be used in the society right across all auditing firms, but at least you'll have some basic knowledge of it and how to use one. The others maybe not far off, but it can use as a guide to enhance that knowledge in using another one. Same at Peachtree. Peachtree is more of an older kind of type of version of accounting software, but it's not far from QuickBooks and it's not far from the other one Sage. It's not too far from either any of the two. So once you have the basic knowledge, you are more advanced and more able to partake and indulge and have more better understanding in manipulating the other software that you might use in the various working world.
Thank you, Mr. Wallen, for that intervention. But I think what your intervention pointed to is something that was raised earlier and which I believe at the policy level requires more focus, is that need for more harmonization, more unification of the programs that are being offered by university. Because you would have had that experience at UTech, but someone else at another institution does not have that experience. So it speaks to the need for those at both the policy level and also at the management level to collaborate and to share their experiences more often, because it is through that collaboration and sharing of experience and capacity that we will be able to effectively respond to the global requirements, because ultimately we are all in this together. So it is not one institution rivaling another institution. We should see it and view it as all institutions having an important role to play in cultivating citizens that are global competitive citizens. So it brings us to the point of the need for greater collaboration. And I believe that that is a role that policy can play to coordinate that kind of interaction. I'm not sure if my panelist wants to chime in on that one.
I would like to chime in on that. That is a brilliant point that Shanika had raised, and it is something that I've been thinking about for a while, in the sense that although we have UTech and UA, which are riding solo, quote unquote, we have like Excelsior Community College, where they are under the umbrella of Triple CJ and all the other community colleges. And although we have technology evolving every day, we have lecturers who really doesn't know that there are new technologies coming in. And I have seen it where a student went to a lecturer and said, "Hey, sir, did you know that this is a new software that is out instead of a software that we are learning about in school?" And then when the lecturer said, "Hey, I will check it out and thing," and it is something that could be of use to us because the working world, that is what they are using. And when they say, "I will pitch it to Triple CJ to see if they can put anything in the policy to say that we will learn about this software instead of the one that we are learning about," there is really no collaboration in there, because we have other community colleges who, I don't want to say, but it is true, they are not privy to it. They have no knowledge of it. And because they don't have no knowledge of it and don't want to do the research, they are saying that this is not something that they want to add to the curriculum. So it is all about us coming together, as you have said quite right, Mr. Brooks. Collaboration is very important. And we have to know that this is what needs to be done, because we have to change with the times and work with what is out there.
Absolutely, we have to change with the times, and all institutions might not have the same capacity, because oftentimes the strategic direction is different, so capacities vary. But what we have to do is to collaborate more so we can share the learning, we can share the capacity. I see the hands. I'll take a comment in the chat and then take the hands that I'm seeing. So I'm seeing from one of our participants, not a question, but really like the points brought forward with having the government help, especially with funds. And I also think that getting them involved will allow them to see the potential each student have, and they can start making plans to have facilities and advanced training that will help the students. Further expounding on the point of the important role that the government and the state have. So we'll take Mr. Wallen and then we'll take Nicole.
Thank you again, Odane. I am making reference to Maurice Henry comment in the chat where he mentioned, Mr. Wallen, you are saying we should stay stagnant with the basic. The schools and government need to adapt and compete with the other countries which are advancing in the technological field by enforcing the use and extension of newer and more specialized software technology. So I am not saying that you should stay stagnant, but for what is currently happening, we must then try to see which university is a little more advanced currently, and then try to do those degrees. There's a lot more need to be done by all the university, even at UTech with the degree that I did. I believe they could have done more in terms of technology, teaching us not just Peachtree, but more advanced accounting software, more techniques, more updated auditing software, because I must say IDEA is not really being used in the auditing world currently, but they teach us it. But then it comes along with extra costs in terms of having these extra more advanced in technological software and equipment that needs to be used. It comes with a cost, and then they're going to say that currently they're not getting the cost to put in these things. So it's a channel, or it's a chain effect, that the more funding they will get, then the better they will argue that the more funding they will get, then the better they can feed our students and put them on the path to the fourth industrial revolution. But we then have to just do our part and lobby for it strongly in the different student unions at the various colleges, put it to them strongly to say that we need these things. So we push the pressure up the ladder. So when it reaches to the president then push it to the different education stakeholders, the governments and other persons that is responsible for the university itself. So we just have to do our part. The student union get the grounds running, put the options, the things in place so that we can pressure these university leaders so we get what we want. Because if we don't do that, then they will continue to do the same old thing, which might not work, which is not currently working. So we have to pressure them for them to feel the pressure and see the need for them to do some changes.
Absolutely. I think we have to redefine strategy at the university level, because I think that once strategy is clear, then tangible actions will become even clearer. So I think at the strategic level, universities have to redefine their education delivery, making their strategic priority be constant and consistent with what the global community requires. So strategy is important. Go ahead, Nicole.
Thank you. Just to follow up on those points, particularly when Yannick was speaking and made mention of the lecturer and what was brought to the lecturer's attention, and then to have the pushback from other colleges. What we need to see is greater participation and intervention from the University Council of Jamaica, which is a governing body that gives accreditations to a lot of these degrees. And we need institutions like that that are responsible for the accreditation to look at greater standardization across the areas that are being offered for similar degrees across the different institutions. So it should not be, as Mr. Wallen alluded to, where you are looking at quote unquote a better university. What we need to do is to have a standard where if an individual chooses a particular university for whatever reason, it could be because they have an affiliation because of parents' alma mater, for argument's sake, and things like that. You're not going to get away from tradition and culture, because we're a nation that runs very deep with tradition and culture, right? My family is such. I mean, the high school that my children went to, that my brother and I went to, is the same high school that my parents went to and that my granduncle went to. My granduncle was head boy, and I had the privilege of having one of my sons become deputy head boy of this noble institution, right? So we are not going to put ourselves in a position where now everybody feels that one particular university is superior to another, or that superior to another. It should be a situation where we are looking at, are we going to the institution because they specialize in this or they specialize in that, right? But if it is a general degree, such as accounting, which most of the universities, community colleges across the island offer, there should be a greater standard. And UCJ is who needs now to step up, right? Is it a situation where they themselves need to be revamped, right? That is probably a question for another debate. Thank you.
We will certainly probe that question when we get to the Higher Education Conference, November 24, 2022. Important point there needs to be standardization. So if ultimately I want to go to one institution, I must be guaranteed at least, at minimum, a global standard that puts me in a position to be as competitive as any other student from another institution. So at the governance level, we must get it right, and we must ensure that we have certain minimum standards that we can guarantee that our education system is producing results. We have 2 more minutes to invite any questions or any comments before we reach to the close. Let me check the chat. I see Mr. Henry making the point that the organizations in charge are slacking in terms of ensuring the students are competent in their field. That's an important question of accountability and whether the governing institutions are fulfilling their actual mandates. Important points there. And we will be putting these questions to the stakeholders at the penultimate Higher Education Conference come November 24. Any final?
There is more comments in the chat, Odane.
Also seen from Mr. Henry, a lot of student unions are joke in the schools. They do nothing besides maybe shaving off some of the school fees. So maybe we have to also look at how student unions go about their advocacy, broadening the scope of their advocacy. We also hear from Ms. Burton, who made the point that flexibility is very important for university programs, especially when it comes to tech breakthroughs. Some universities are so antiquated in their approach, where they only teach the fundamental approach from 60 years ago without acknowledging that when students go into the workplace, they will not know how to navigate as they never learned modern day approach. So important points there that we have to re-envision how we go about delivering education in Jamaica. We have to ensure that our delivery is in line and in keeping with the modern day realities. Absolutely, Nico. Great point by Natalia. Any final comments? I will ask my panelists to just offer their final closing remarks after such a riveting and engaging discussion. Before I invite the panelists, I'll take Ms. Hall's intervention.
All right, so I know that there is a lot happening, and of course, great points to all our panelists that have come through. Also, I want the persons to be able to say to the persons in charge, listen, this is where we're at. A lot of persons, they want to go to university, but the problem is that it's so much theory and they don't learn theory. They learn hands-on, and that persons, our teachers, our lecturers need to meet persons where they are at. You understand? And in such a way where Mr. Wallen would have made reference to the accounting software and one of our participants, give persons what they will use in the workspace instead of telling, don't tell me what this is, or don't read what it is to me. Allow me to do it, and I can move forward and grow from there. Some persons don't learn with just theory, and we just have to learn how to meet persons where they are at, and so that persons will be better able to elevate themselves to be ready for the fourth industrial revolution.
Important point being raised by Ms. Hall as it relates to modalities, how we are going about delivering education. Mr. Henry made a point in the chat that students need the foundation for these modern industries from an early stage, such as primary level. And this is important because we have to start the narrative. We have to redefine education from the earliest level in our education system. And we will have this discussion in upcoming panel discussions where we will be looking more steeply on policy reform, some of the policy issues that we need to tackle to make holistic education reform, because we have several education transformation reports, the most recent being the Orlando Patterson's report that speaks to some of the deficiencies in the education system. And so in future panel discussions, we will be looking at some of these reforms that are needed to ensure that we expand our capacity to be able to ensure students from all levels of the system can matriculate and be exposed early. We will now take Mr. Henry, and he will be the final, we will receive the final intervention from him, and then we have the closing remarks from our panelists.
Yes, hello again. Just wanted to add on the point, right? What I meant by introducing stuff at the primary level. So let's take an example from a country like Germany. They start teaching engineering and other courses at the early age of 5 in their schools, right? In Jamaica, we don't have that in our primary level. It's just 5 basic subjects: math, science, social studies, English, right? And we don't really get to touch on those different aspects of education until like the end of sixth form into the first year of university. How can we have a system that is set up where they probably only do 1 or 2 CXC course geared towards engineering, such as electrical or building technology or what is the other one? Construction. What is it? Technical drawing, right? Those are the only courses which are somewhat an introduction, but they don't give you a start to help you transition, as I was saying earlier. We need programs that start from as early as the primary level that says, all right, if you want to structure and go into this career path, say, I want to be an accountant, right? You have a small little course that will diverge from the math that would probably teach them a little of financing, probably teach them like how the numbers would work, the percentages, go a little into detail. If they want to diverge into math further, right, where they can start a little add math or something along the lines of that, so that they can further transition into the engineering aspect, right, or a little building and infrastructure where they can learn about how buildings are built, some basic stuff on engineering, where they can help to transition them throughout the levels of education that helps them to better understand going in, right, and help. This can also introduce the modern concepts from an early age, because students are mostly on their phones and their gadgets. They can learn these things from an early age and take an interest into them and further study these things on their own, right, if it piques their interest. So what I would like is just for them to introduce programs which help students with their transitions into programs, into school, and updating the current system of the current education system of what we teach in the schools. Thank you.
No disagreements there. And as I alluded earlier, it will be a feature of our more extensive panel discussion on the policy imperatives, what we need to reform in the education system to put it on a pathway to accelerate Jamaica's progression towards the fourth industrial revolution. So I'll invite my panelists at this stage to provide us with some closing remarks, what they took away from this session, what they will be sharing with their student population. So I'll go first with Ms. White.
All right. So in the end, it all comes down to people and values. That is my biggest takeaway, and collaboration. We need to shape a future that works for all of us by putting persons first and empowering them. Although some of us may think that the fourth industrial revolution is coming to robotize humanity, it all comes down to human nature, your creativity, your empathy, your innovation, your stewardship, and it can lift humanity into a new collective and moral consciousness based on shared experiences, a shared sense of destiny. And it is on us to ensure that the latter prevails. Very informative discussion. I had a great time here listening to my other panelists. It was a wonderful time.
It was great having you as well. You provided significant insights. I will now go to my other female panelists who provided us with some serious insights and perspective this evening. Ms. Burton, to provide her closing remarks.
Yes, I feel like this was a very fruitful and necessary discussion for us to have as not only Jamaicans, but Jamaican youth, to assess where we are and where we need to get to in the sense of preparing for the fourth industrial revolution. So this has helped me to see that there are several things that can be done by all of the parties that will be impacted by the fourth industrial revolution. So there are aspects in which everyone can improve in their own right. So the government can improve, institutions can improve, administration can improve, and us as students can improve through advocating and making our needs known to these persons in higher authority. So I would like to thank everyone for coming. Thank you for sharing your viewpoint. Thank you for listening to our viewpoint as panelists. I want to thank all of the other panelists for their very riveting insights as well. And I want to just implore everyone to continue to use your voices and platforms because they are significant and they do matter to support the excellent work that the Youth Education Association is doing.
Absolutely important invitation here. The team continues to encourage collaboration among youth. We will now take the final comments from the lone gentleman who represented very well this evening on the panel, Mr. Barrett.
All right, so in closing, what I want to just add finally is that as young people, we have to be prepared and open. And while a lot of this preparation is on the education, and we've spoken about that length as to the role that the education system and by extension the government plays in the awareness and sensitization of the fourth industrial revolution, especially in the context of a higher education perspective. But at the same time, I think what should be put forward is that as young people, we also have to step out of our comfort zones a bit and see what else is there beyond our scope and what else is there beyond just the local market. You know, somebody mentioned earlier that as a country, we are not only preparing people for work here or to compete on a local space, or preparing people to compete globally. So the government has a responsibility in making the education system match that mandate. But at the same time, as young people, the onus is also on us for when these opportunities come forward, that we take them up and take them seriously. This evening has really been an interesting one, and the perspectives from all different angles have also been, really and truly amazing. I think there are also some key takeaways for myself as student union president, and some of the areas that I have to raise with the administration here, and some questions to ask even. So I'm really appreciative of this experience and the opportunity to share on this panel today.
We thank you also for joining us this evening. I've gone down the line. So here at Youth Education Association, we thank all the panelists for joining us this evening and providing us with such insightful perspectives. We can assure you that your perspectives have not gone on deaf ears. It will find its way into a policy action document that will form the basis for future dialogue and future engagement with stakeholders who have the ability to implement reforms to higher education in Jamaica. I will now invite Ms. Renee Laban, Chief International Relations Officer, to marshal the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Are you hearing me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. So on behalf of the Youth Education Association and its members, I would like to extend a warm appreciation and thank you to all our panelists who participated in today's discussion. It was indeed a wonderful discussion and wonderful to see the young people of Jamaica contributing to the ideas that are necessary to bring us forward as a nation as we embark on competing with the rest of the world as we engage in this new era of industrial revolution, as we engage in the fourth industrial revolution. Now, I thank you again for your participation, and we do look forward to all those who join us this evening to join us for our second panel discussion, as well as our higher education conference coming up in the month of November. Again, thank you all for your participation this evening.
Fully endorse that. Thank you all for joining us this evening and providing such important perspectives. As Ms. Laban, the chat continues to blow up. Mr. Maurice, you can join us for our next discussion. And the next discussion will be on November 5, that is next week, where we will be discussing how can we make higher education more accessible. Accessibility is an important thing that we must talk about, and we will be looking to have you here next week to help us to interrogate how can we make higher education more accessible. It has been my pleasure to be your moderator for this evening. Just to inform that we will be publishing a poll at the end of the session where we would like to engage your feedback on the overall status of our higher education system. I'm seeing from my end where the poll is running, so you can just tap in and to respond to the questions that are there. These responses are important because, as I alluded to earlier, it will form part of the document that we will be presenting to key education stakeholders to be in a position to advance the advocacy, because YEA is not about talk, it's about action. So important that you participate and provide those feedback. So just to repeat, next week, we will be here again to engage in another discussion. This panel discussion was brought to you by Youth Education Association in partnership with UNESCO India, and also want to recognize our local partners, Jamaica Union of Tertiary Students, as well as the Michael University College, important stakeholders that we have. So join us next week, same time, same place, different topic, but same energy. Thank you all for joining us. The poll continues to run, and we just invite you to share your perspectives, to allow us to document what needs to be documented so that your voice, your perspectives can be articulated to the various education stakeholders. The conference coming up will be on November 24. We will have stakeholders from the University Council of Jamaica. We will have stakeholders from the private sector organization of Jamaica. We will have stakeholders from premier institutions, colleges, community colleges. Most definitely, Mr. Henry, government officials will be there because they control the levers of policy. And so we want to implore you to mobilize your community, mobilize your neighbor and your alumni to come out and to share your perspective and to assist us in advancing this important dialogue. The poll continues to run. Share your feedback, share your perspective. The conference most definitely will be open to general public, and we invite, it will be hosted at the Michael University, and we invite you to take along persons from your institution, at least 5 persons from your institution, to attend the panel discussion. So it was my pleasure being your moderator, and I thank you for your participation. This brings a lid to an engaging and riveting discussion that we would have had this evening. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of the night. Ms. Hall, you wanted to say something? So thank you all. Have a good rest of the night. On your way out, you will receive a follow-up survey that we encourage you to complete so that we can have your issues become our issues and we can collectively work together to make it the government's issues. I'm your host, Odane Brooks. See you next week. Same time, same place.